So I want to talk about translations today, if it's this morning time for you. Um, but I would like to talk about, um, you probably are already reading a translation, but I just want to give you a little bit of my preference, what I'd like to do. Excuse me, I got a hair hanging off my hat. Um, it's from my dog Cosmo. Anyway, so when we look at translations, there really are only two kinds of translations, and we got to decide, which one do we want, or understand what they are, so that we can use them properly or use them for the right things. So there are basically two kinds of translations, and the two kinds are formal and informal. We call them formal equivalent and informal equivalent. And in a nutshell, the formal equivalent is word for word. And I'll give you an example or some examples of this later on. The other one is informal, and that is thought for thought. Now, when I look at reading a Bible or choosing a Bible, I usually do what probably most people don't do, and that is I read the preface, um, or introduction, or preface and introduction of the Bible that I want to buy or read, because I want to understand something of the philosophy that the group, which most good translations are translated by a group, not by a single person. What kind of group? And some things you can recognize are not denominational, but basically theological. The theological persuasion. There are some like formal equivalents, especially when you have a word for word translation. People are more particular uh, about what they're saying. What I'm going to share a little bit about New American Standard, which has been around for over 50 years now, as a translation made by the or translated by the Lockman Foundation. I'm sure that they have employed different translators as they've gone through. One of the things that they translators will do, or translating committees will do, they'll assign a few people to a particular book, or even a genre, like the poetry books or prophetic books. And normally there's like three people to a um, to one book that that they'll use to translate. The New American Standard does that, and they try to get not just the word for word, but that also means the structure, the original structure of it, which a lot of people, and I think rightly so, consider to be a little bit awkward. However, I have to say that the New American Standard 2020 translation is the best. They have gotten better through the years. I believe the first one came out in the early 70s. It was 1971, if I'm not mistaken. And they've had translations 1995, or 1997, and then 1977, I'm sorry, and then 1995, and then coming all the way now up to 2020. So 25 years in translation work. The form That's formal equivalent, especially when we're talking about the New American Standard. You can tell what my preference is already. Um, the informal translation is thought for thought, and that can get kind of sloppy, in my opinion. Now, some people love informal translations; they're more thought for thoughts. The New International Version, I think, is a thought for thought rather than word for word, and perhaps a good thought for thought one to use. It's not my preference. I don't like it. I don't like the translation. I don't like the committees that they use. It has a particular theological bent that you have, in even some of the ways that they translate some of the words. This is me. I'm picky or particular about this, but these are the two different types of translations. And you want a translation. You don't want to paraphrase. You want something that actually a translation committee has worked on, which will help you. So here's my two preferences. One is the New American Standard Bible, the 2020 translate version, which I think is better than the other ones. Again, I'm very picky, and I'm not a Greek or Hebrew scholar either, and I'm picky about these things because I like to know that they're really getting at the heart of the word. Um, but I would say, in the last 5 years, taken to um, an informal translation, which is the New Living Translation. And I see I left the end parenthesis off this one. Sorry, forgive me for that grammatical error. But these are the two that I really enjoy using. For my study, I use the New American Standard Bible 2020, and I start with the English. I use a program called Logos. I'll talk about that in another video. But it helps me to get at the word right away, to see the word right away. Uh, and then I can get into the original languages, and I do better in Greek than I do in Hebrew. Uh, I find Hebrew just defeats me all the time, too much. But so yeah, so we want to go that direction with the formal translation. I'll use the New American Standard, and I'll talk more about translating practices, how to really look at, sorry, interpretation practices, how we find out what the Bible is actually saying. What is it that the Bible is saying to us? What I really like about the informal New Living Translation is that it is a translation, not a paraphrase, and the translating community, or the translating committee rather, is from Tyndall, which is a respectable group of scholars. And so for the last 5 years, I've used that for my devotional life. And I'm sorry, I'll show you that translation, or the particular Bible that I use, that I've started to use. I used to use Read Scripture, which gives you a passage to read every day, which is great to get you through the Bible in a year. But then some years ago, I came across the NLT's chronological Bible, which gets you through the Bible chronologically. And it's 1 year. I think this is a new cover. It's not the cover on the one that I have, but what I really like about this is that you can read through the Bible in a year chronologically, so you kind of see where everything fits, see where the prophets fit. Um, Puts Chronicles and Kings together, Samuel, Chronicles, and Kings together. So you get all of that good stuff going for you. But I like this particular one, and I use it on Audible. I listen to it, and when I can, I listen and I read. I do both things at the same time. And I'm usually ahead. Like, I just finished, today is the 12th? Yeah, November 12th. I've just finished another year of the scripture. Now, I've been getting there earlier and earlier every year because it's not cheating, but I speed up the Audible version so that because I read faster than usually what the person is talking, it's the speed that the person is talking at. But this gets me through the Bible in a whole year, and helps me see what needs to be done as far as my devotional life is concerned. And as I mentioned in the last video, if you're having a hard time with the Lord, um, or feeling or sensing God's presence with you, the number one thing is that I would guess is that you're not reading the Bible. Let me give you a statistic too, or at least tell you about what my observations have been. Um, that is that most ministers that I've had the opportunity or been able to help minister to because of some kind of moral failure, the number one reason, or the one fact that is across all of them, if not 99% of them, is that they stop reading the Bible. And so there's something about touching God when we read the scripture. And I've come to understand that God is in the long game, not the short game. And we've got to get our minds around that as well. We want to get to the long game with God. We want to realize that we kind of see things in moments and that, but really God is in the long game, even in revealing things to us. Um, it's not some instantaneous thing. I've learned things over the long game with God rather than the short game. So we're talking about translations today, and there's a formal and informal translation. Let me see if I can get back to you with that and show you that the two kinds of translations. Um, and for me, it's the New American Standard is the formal one, that is the word for word one. And then the second one is the New Living Translation, which is the more thought for thought. And I even will dip into the informal translation just to see how they say some things when they look a little bit not confusing, but I want a different English look at it. So that's all for today, and I'll be back tomorrow, God willing, and we'll talk to you then.